Violence, and to discuss that, I'm joined by two beautiful women, I must say, today on set. Mikreen Adhiambo, who is the program's coordinator, Trust for Indigenous Culture and Health, Tika Kenya, and Mary-Liz Biubwa, gender experts. Ladies, many thanks for making time for us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Probably to start us off in this discussion, since its inception in 1991, the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence has become more of a ritual celebrated every year.
Yes.
If we are to look back at the number of years it has been in existence, is it paying off? Has it paid off? Mary-Liz?
Certainly it is paying off. Certainly it's going to keep on paying off. And why I think and I know it is paying off, when we speak about it, often what comes up is, why has the boy child been forgotten? So definitely it is paying off. Has he been forgotten? Totally no. Why? Because the only thing that is happening is that the conversation is getting deeper and deeper. People are coming to a realization that it was something that is necessary, and people are feeling like when this goes on, women are gonna claim and probably reclaim all the spaces, then they're gonna be left with probably no spaces. However, that is also a misconception, because then the idea is not to claim all the spaces. The idea is to claim enough spaces for women, which we are not claiming yet.
Just to be clear on the terms, are women claiming or reclaiming?
No, we are claiming, because since time immemorial, when it comes to all issues in the society, especially in Africa, the patriarchal nature of how things are done, women have always been seen as second-class citizens. And because of that, they've not been accessing most spaces. So now we are championing to claim the spaces. We are not reclaiming them because we've not had them yet.
Fair enough. Let me get Mikreen to the conversation as well. What are some of the things that women are agitating for? What are the demands, in other terms, that women to be louder enough in these 16 days of activism?
Thank you so much. And just to reiterate what my very able colleague here has said, space. And space here is like so broad, from political to economical to social spaces. And here, in terms of like women from time immemorial, women have been considered to be of second class. And what has really led to women being considered as second class? I know that's a conversation we'll be having in this.
Fair enough.
Yes, in this interview today. But the space, the broader aspect of space, we are claiming, or women are claiming their space in the society, not only in Kenya, not only in Africa, but globally.
When you say women are claiming, which is some sort now having a firm stand on their matters, and when I hear a lot being, talked about that it is time for women to stand out, does that also include at the expense of what others see, that women stand out at the expense of the boy child, the man sitting down?
It's not at the expense of anyone, really, because here's the idea. I'll use a political example. Currently, we have one of the most unconstitutional governments in Kenya. Why? Because we have the whole bone of contention around two-thirds gender rule. And two-thirds gender rule has nothing to do with being against men. The idea is, if you're going to have a parliament of 290 parliamentarians, we need a third to either be men or women. It can be either or. So you see, the whole perspective of gender equality has nothing to do with only women. If it's
and why has it over the years then been narrowed down that mentioned gender, it's all singularly women?
It is gonna be singularly women, because if you're weighing 10 kgs of sugar, right, it has to balance with 10 kg weight. You'll keep adding where the weight is lesser until it balances, right? So that's what we are doing. With gender equality, women were lower in weight, men were always weighty and stuff. So a bit of weight has to be taken from them to be put on the side of women so that it can balance out. And that's what we are looking for. We are not looking to take anything from them. We're just looking for that place where we can say we are balanced. And by the way, balanced doesn't mean 50-50. Hence why it is two-thirds gender rule and not half gender rule or something. Fair enough.
Yes,
okay,
and on that note, I think I was really carried away by what she was saying. And every time we talk about gender equality, people think it's women against men.
Yeah.
And the way she said, it's never the case. Equality here means like the same platform, giving that woman a chance to show that I can equally do as much. Do not like desegregate me on the basis of my sex. Do not desegregate me on the basis of the roles that the society has like placed on me. Simply because I'm a woman, I'm supposed to be like passive, I'm supposed to be like silent. That is one of the inequalities that this whole gender equality is trying like to challenge, but it's not like challenging the existence of men or the role of men in the society. So that's a misconception that we really need to address and challenge in the long run.
Fair enough. It is good that you have cleared it's not two genders who are antagonistic and at rival at one another. Let's move on. The theme of this year is Orange My World, hashtag Hear Me Too. Mary Liz, let me start with you. What is the importance of hearing out people who want to be heard?
Yeah, we have three importance, to be honest. The first importance is most of the time because of social constructs and, you know, stigmatization and all these other things. When we have rape survivors speaking out, first of all, their stories are either misqualified, or most of the time people will defend the perpetrator at the expense of the victim. People won't believe the victim and all that kind of stuff.
And when you say people, do you mean those in authority alone or people in general?
By people, I mean people in general, because then a perpetrator has people behind them. These people are not necessarily leaders. These people are not necessarily men or just women. Or it's a whole spectrum of human beings, and these people are defending this person. And Hear Me Too is looking to address that, because then we need women from grassroots areas, when they are speaking, their story needs to be listened to. And I always say, for me, it's very, very, very personal, because I am a survivor, and the one thing that I've been struggling with has been to say it has happened, and then it's invalidated. And how it is solved on the front of, you know, we have to protect the family, we have to do all those kind of things. And that affects you, and you never really know until a time where you really realize you have to heal from that, because you never healed from that. So Hear Me Too basically looks to ensure, one, when you tell your story, it's believed. Two, you don't have to tell my story. I shouldn't talk to you in a dark room, then you come on KTN News and speak about my story. I have to speak my story by myself. And then don't say because a woman is in Garissa, for instance, they can't speak about their story. Then what would be the job of sharing people's story? Go to Garissa, get that woman, let them speak. Human rights defenders, they're everywhere. They're doing a lot of amazing work. What are we doing to listen to them, to ensure that these words go out there? And then beyond listening now, there's the justice part where we have...
We'll come to that beyond listening. In fact, that's a point I want us to discuss a little bit later. But let me get to Mcreen. Mcreen, what are often the root causes of women inequality when it comes to gender?
Culture, that is one of them. And in the simplest terms, culture is defined as the people's way of life. You're born as a girl, like from the onset, just giving basic examples. In many societies in Africa, if a child is born as a girl, you'll hear that the ululations, for instance, are 3. And if a baby boy is born, the ululations are 4 or 5. And you're like, yes, my lineage is so secure. Like, the inequalities begin from birth. And you're like told, sometimes you're like told, do not, if you're a man and maybe you're showing emotions, do not behave like a woman. You know?
In a rather demeaning manner, isn't it?
Exactly. Do not behave like a woman. A man is not supposed to cry. Or when you're a woman and you're speaking out, you're told you're behaving like a man. African women are not supposed to be that way. And it really enshrines and shrinks that woman or that girl from the word go. When we come again to social inequalities, even at the workplace, like women are given roles based on their gender-constructed roles. Like you'll get a woman playing subordinate because she's pretty, she can dress up, and you're like, you're supposed to be the second to that man. And most of the times, women have been living or have been told like to live, you're supposed to seek for validation. And the moment you seek for someone else's validation, you're playing secondary. Your point or your opinion does not really count. Like from cultural to social to economical to political, I can just like break it down the whole day. So
let me get Marilise to the conversation. Often when we have gender conversations, there are two things that often stand out, which to me need an explanation probably from an expert as you are. There's the question of space and there's the question of society. What exactly is the space? And when we talk of society, who are we talking of?
When we talk of society, we are talking about everyone. Our government, like literally everyone in the spectrum, men, women, children, everyone involved. When we talk of spaces, these are spaces like are created purposely for, you know, women issues and everything. And looking at the background of 16 Days of Activism in 1991, one of the major spaces that came out of speaking about women issues was the Beijing Convening, where it was particularly women. And you know, I know, we've read in history that during that time, leaders were not settled across the world, especially in Africa. Why? Because it was a space for women, particularly for women, speaking on issues about women. Why are these spaces important? They're very important because then it's when we sit together and highlight issues about women, because the only homogeneous thing about women is that we are women, but all other things are different. The way I experience my womanhood is not the way my colleague here experiences her womanhood, is not the way the First Lady of Kenya experiences her womanhood.
And does that call for a differentiation in space?
It doesn't call for a differentiation in space, but it does call for a specific space for women so that these women can come together and collectively come up with solutions for women. Because then also we cannot write a constitution or we cannot come up with policies and bills for each and every single woman that makes 52% of the Kenyan population of women, but we can come up with a collective solution of ensuring all women issues are addressed by bringing all these categories of women together and coming up with one standpoint of saying, you see, as women, we feel like if this is achieved, everyone else will be catered for.
McCreen, often when there's discussion of gender-based, and more so gender-based violence, the Me Too, the Hear Me Too, of course, the revolt that is happening across the world, there's often the question that a lot of it is more elitist, that it is the empowered, middle-class, average woman who can air out her views rather than the downtrodden woman who lives in the village, probably. Is this movement, and are these movements elitist in your view?
Not at all. And I can give a very basic example. We have so many grassroots women movements. Those women who are not elites, those women who've not had the best of the education, those women who are not the creme de la cremes of the society, and they're doing impeccable jobs in their own spaces down there. Like when you look and you get to read and what women do, even in the Kenyan context, even from the slum areas around Nairobi, there are very powerful women who are out there and are so vocal and so passionate about what they do. So the perception that these women movements is all about the elite, no. It composes of all women regardless of the age, regardless of the class, regardless of the social status. Because one thing I always believe, gender-based violence affects all women, regardless of these other factors. Whether a woman is rich or poor, they experience violence at some point in their life. So like collectively, regardless of your class, what can women do as a one space to like address this? So it's not an elitist movement to say.
Fair enough. And Marilise, are women doing much enough? The force that is needed to change probably the dichotomy of presentation when it comes to gender. Are women doing much enough to attain their space?
Before I answer that, I would like to add something on what you were saying on the movement being elitist and everything. I do agree the movement is not elitist from the perspective of how women are working. But the problem of elitism comes in when it comes especially to the media. Then who does the media reach? Because then, for instance, us sitting here today, how deliberate were the people here at Standard Media being to ensure that, first of all, they bring someone from the grassroots? Because then it's very important, regardless of what language they use while they're speaking, regardless of how hard it's going to be for you to bring them here, their story is important. And so I feel like when it comes to media, when it's print journalism, when it's mainstream media, when it's radio and all these other places, social media and all these other places, how deliberate are we being in ensuring that these people who we don't consider elite are able to access
The
these
question of
places.
elitism often arises when you look at the people who spearhead some of these movements. The flagship initiatives of individuals who rather necessarily could not at first place have undergone gender-based violence, or even secondly, are opening organizations for some who are accused of sponsor money and whatsoever. And that is the question I asked.
And we have many who are doing that as well. It's not like it's not in existence. It is there and it is in existence. However, that cannot be used to invalidate the work that is going on, and that goes to the question that you're asking: are women doing enough? Yes, women are doing enough. Imagine a lot of things are happening out there. You'd be shocked when you just sit and put your ears on the ground to just see what is happening. A lot of things are happening. Yesterday, I was in Kibera. Launching the first ever feminist organization. The person who was launching it is my very, very close friend. I'm the one who was emceeing the event. And it was amazing to see, because we have a lot. Like in Kibera, historically, we have like, I think 9,000, maybe more. After the last census, we are waiting for next year to know how many are there. But we have over 9,000, and all of them are either in collaboration with organizations across the world, or in Africa or in Kenya, but not necessarily in Kibera. And this is the first feminist organization that when you go, you feel like it reaches people in Kibera. Why? Because how easy will it be to save a little girl who is about to be raped in Kibera by someone who lives right in Kibera, as opposed to by an organization that is in America and is in collaboration with people in Kenya.
Fair enough. Let me get to McLean. McLean, what are some of the basic challenges that women often undergo?
First of all, I wouldn't even delve directly into finances. Stigma and stigma on the basis of your sex. You know, I think I've reiterated this and I'll still put it across. Simply because you're a woman, you're not supposed to be in some spaces. And I'll give a very basic example. In most of our women leaders who've gone into the political space, the first question they're asked: are you married? Who are you married to? Why are you divorced? You cannot manage a family. Can you manage a country? And that is a really big challenge for women now talking in a political context. And again, even lack of resources. Most women are not educated. Education as a resource. Most women are illiterate. They cannot have access to quality education. And quality education here means from admission through the retention process and completion of a quality education system. And of course, not having basic knowledge is a barrier to having access to so many other resources outside there. And culture. Culture, I think, is just the mother of all these challenges that women face outside there. Because socialization from the word go, the constructions from the word go, what our forefathers did, what our parents did, and we are socialized that women are supposed to behave this way and we cannot behave that way because we'll be considered to be social deviants, and that really poses great challenges that women face all across the world.
I understand we need to take a short break, but before we do that, let me ask you one question. It's good that you made mention of the question of women in leadership. There's often the cliche that women are the greatest of enemies of their own. Is that primarily true?
No, it's not.
It's not true.
So when the number of women, even though as low as it can be, is increasing in terms of representation, are the women leaders, through their efforts, doing much enough to help women generally?
We have those who are doing much enough, because also,
not all.
Not all. Because I always say, leadership is not gendered. Leadership is leadership. That you're a woman doesn't mean you're a good leader. That you're a man doesn't mean you're a good leader. You can't be good.
But when you come from a sector and a population that has, for widely and for a very long time, been oppressed by another gender, the primary expectation will be you will stand out for them.
Yeah, but you see now, we have this type, the type of politics that we experience in Kenya is kind of favoritism politics, where how do I know you and how are you going to add in me into becoming a leader? And so even as Mary Liz, by the time I'm saying I am vying, it's because one, I have been validated and my vying has been solidified. So I'm expected to vie because someone has said they'll do everything to make me win. And then after I win, you know, it's easy for that leader to become a puppet. Why? Because it wasn't your fight in the beginning. Yes. It was someone else's fight. It was just, you're the one who was covering up for that fight. And so you're there, but you're not representing women. You're representing a mandate of 1 or 2 people. They can either be women or men, but not women in the society in general, and that becomes very problematic.
Fair enough. I understand we need to take a short break here on Weekend Express. When we come back from the break, post the hearing of the cases of women whose rights were violated, what are the initiative in as far as organizations and even the government doing? Stay tuned.